picture this. You're standing in a group of fluent English speakers, right? Maybe it's a bustling networking event or, just a casual dinner party with
And the
friends.
drinks are poured, everyone's relaxed.
Exactly. The conversation is flowing beautifully, and then somebody makes a joke. It's subtle, like a quick little play on words, maybe referencing something from 10 minutes ago.
And instantly the whole group bursts out laughing.
Right. But you're just left standing there, frozen. You've got this blank smile pasted on your face, and you're frantically translating the words in your head.
Oh, man. Your brain is like spinning like a buffering icon on a terrible internet connection.
Yes. And then, boom, 5 seconds too late, the translation clicks. You finally get the joke. But, the moment is gone. They've already moved on. It feels incredibly isolating, doesn't it?
It's a deeply frustrating experience. And frankly, it's a rite of passage that almost every language learner goes through. That mental lag, that 5-second delay where your brain is just grinding the gears trying to compute the language. It makes you feel like an observer in your own life rather than an active participant.
You're physically in the room, but linguistically, you're always 5 seconds in the past.
Exactly.
Well, that feeling of isolation is exactly what we are going to fix today. So welcome to Dale English Class. I am so thrilled you're here with us because today we're handing you a highly practical, thought-provoking roadmap to smashing right through that invisible wall of language learning.
We really are.
We are breaking down exactly how to take your English from just, getting by to achieving that effortless, near-native fluency, the highly coveted C1 level.
Right. And to do that, we are officially ditching the sterile textbooks, the boring grammar drills, and we're looking at the raw practical mechanics of rewiring your brain.
So let's get into it. The first step to breaking through that wall, I guess we need to understand the barrier itself, right?
Yeah, because the wall you're hitting in that dinner party scenario isn't actually a lack of vocabulary. And it's not a failure to understand grammar either.
It's not.
No, it's a lack of automaticity. We really need to define the exact gap we're trying to cross here. It's what linguists call the leap from the upper intermediate level, B2, to the advanced level, which is C1.
Let's make that concrete for the listeners. What does it physically and mentally feel like to be stuck at B2 versus, operating at C1? Because I suspect a lot of people are lingering at B2 right now and feeling exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. B2 is best described as functional adequacy. If you're at this level, you are highly capable.
Yeah.
You can survive a complex business meeting.
You can write a perfectly clear email.
Exactly. You can vigorously defend your political opinion in a debate.
Yeah.
You are, technically speaking, fluent.
But
it requires an immense amount of cognitive load. You are still actively managing the language. You finish that business meeting, and you need a nap because your brain has been running this massive background process just to keep up.
Right. It's like driving a manual transmission car when you're first learning. You're getting to your destination, sure, but you're constantly overthinking the clutch, monitoring the RPMs.
You're terrified you're going to stall out on a hill.
Yes. It demands all your focus. C1, then, would be the automatic transmission on the open highway. You're just cruising.
The car just responds to your instincts.
Right, allowing you to listen to the radio, enjoy the scenery, and just drive.
That analogy holds up perfectly when you look at the mechanics of the brain. At C1, the language becomes a transparent tool rather than the actual object of your attention.
So you're focused on the idea, not the words.
Exactly. Effortless precision. You immediately grasp subtext, irony, sarcasm. You can seamlessly shift your tone from highly formal in a boardroom to, casually colloquial at a pub with coworkers.
Without missing a beat.
Right. And moving between these two phases, from that heavy B2 load to C1 automaticity, usually takes around 200 to 300 hours of highly targeted practice.
Which begs the obvious question, what are we actually doing with those 300 hours? If I'm at B2, I already know the rules of the road. I know my verb conjugations.
You know how to structure a paragraph.
Yeah. So if this gap isn't about sitting down and learning massive, entirely new grammatical concepts from scratch, what exactly are we adding?
We're adding nuance. We're tweaking the foundation you already possess. Advanced fluency is essentially B2 on steroids.
B2 on steroids, okay.
It's not about discovering some secret tense native speakers use when you aren't around. It's about taking the basic tools you have and learning to wield them with absolute precision.
Walk me through what that tweaking looks like in a real conversation. Give me the mechanics.
Let's start with tenses. A B2 speaker knows how to form the future perfect tense mechanically. They know it's will have plus the past participle.
Sure.
But a C1 speaker knows how to deploy the future perfect to make sophisticated assumptions about the present moment.
Wait, how does that work?
So instead of just saying, I'm sure he noticed my mistake, which is perfectly fine B2 English, a C1 speaker might say, I'm sure he will have noticed my mistake.
Oh, I see. Mechanically, you're projecting yourself into the future and looking back at a present event.
Exactly. It adds this layer of inevitability. It's much stronger than just saying, he probably noticed. You're manipulating time with the grammar for emotional effect.
That is fascinating.
C1 speakers also use highly advanced phrases for speculation. They don't just rely on maybe or perhaps. They'll say, he could conceivably have driven all night, or the odds are we'll be late.
The odds are is such a great phrase. It instantly sounds incredibly natural.
It really does. Another powerful area of nuance is the passive voice. You learn passive voice early on, but C1 is about the subtle, almost philosophical difference in agency.
Give me an example.
Take the phrase, there's nothing to do, versus there's nothing to be done.
Wait, let's pause there. I feel like most learners use those completely interchangeably. How do they actually differ?
It comes down to the passive infinitive. The to be done part, there's nothing to do, implies personal boredom. It means you lack entertainment.
Like, I'm bored on a Sunday.
Right. But when you say there's nothing to be done, you are removing personal agency entirely and assigning the action to the universe. It means the situation is fundamentally hopeless. Our hands are tied.
Oh, wow. So it's the difference between being bored and, like, the company's going bankrupt and we can't stop it.
Exactly. It's a tiny shift in the grammatical machinery, but the nuance is entirely different.
You love that. What else?
Moving on to syntax, C1 heavily utilizes negative inversion for dramatic emphasis. Instead of saying, I have never seen such a beautiful sunset, you literally take the helper verb and flip it before the subject.
Like you're asking a question.
Exactly. But you're making a statement, never have I seen such a beautiful sunset.
That structural flip gives it this beautiful, almost literary rhythm.
It does.
Yeah.
And finally, there is the vital cultural art of hedging and boosting. Hedging is softening a statement, which is essential for corporate and polite society.
You don't just walk into a meeting and say, this is a bad solution.
But that's way too blunt. You hedge it. You say, presumably, it seems like this might not be our strongest option.
Yeah.
You're intentionally cushioning the impact.
And boosting is the opposite.
Yes, amplifying a statement to show absolute conviction, using words like undeniably or it has been proven to be.
Look, I have to push back on this a little bit because listening to this list, negative inversions, passive infinitives, hedging it sounds incredibly academic.
I get that.
If my ultimate goal is just to grab a coffee with a native speaker, be natural, make friends, without sounding like a linguistics textbook, shouldn't I just be grinding flashcards? Wouldn't memorizing massive lists of new vocabulary words be much more practical?
I completely understand why you'd think that.
Yeah.
It is the most common trap for intermediate learners. We assume that if we just learn the translation for every noun in the dictionary, we'll be fluent.
Right, it seems logical.
But here is the hard truth. Knowing 5,000 advanced vocabulary words doesn't help you if it takes your brain 10 seconds to retrieve a single one of them. The secret to advanced fluency isn't actually learning new words. It's about unlocking the words you already know.
Unlocking them. Explain the mechanics of that. How are my current words locked?
To understand this, we have to look at how the human brain stores language. You have two distinct databases of vocabulary, passive and active.
Okay.
Your passive vocabulary contains all the words you recognize when you read them in a book or hear them in a movie, but you can't summon them to use spontaneously.
And active is what I can actually speak.
Exactly, words you fire off instantly. For almost everyone stuck at B2, their passive vocabulary is a massive library, and their active vocabulary is a tiny little pamphlet.
That is so accurate.
To reach C1 automaticity, you don't need to stuff more words into the passive library. You need to physically rewire the connections to convert passive words into active ones.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how do we force that conversion? How do I take a word I theoretically know and drag it into my everyday speech?
There are two strict behavioral rules you must implement immediately. Rule number 1, close the dictionary.
Close it. But what if I'm in the middle of a sentence and my brain just blanks on a word?
That exact moment of panic is when you must keep the dictionary closed. Think about what happens when you reach for a translation app. You hit a roadblock, you look up the word, you say it, and you move on.
Problem solved, right?
You've solved the immediate problem, but you've completely bypassed your brain's natural retrieval process. You haven't built a neural pathway. You've outsourced it to your phone. To build fluency, You have to embrace circumlocution.
Circumlocution, meaning talking around the concept.
Yes. You describe the missing word using the words you do have until your conversation partner naturally supplies the exact term you needed.
So if I forget the word for stapler, I don't look it up.
No, you say, the small metal device on my desk that bites paper together.
Right, and it feels a little silly in the moment.
It does. But the act of forcing your brain to scramble, map out related concepts, and creatively solve the communication gap is exactly what strengthens your active recall.
It's like navigating a city. If you rely on a GPS app every single time you drive, you never actually learn the streets. The second your phone dies, you're hopelessly lost.
Perfect analogy.
But if you force yourself to navigate by landmarks, you build a mental map. So step 1 is embracing the struggle of circumlocution. What's the second rule?
Rule number 2. Ban cheater words.
Cheater words. I have a feeling I'm deeply guilty of this. What's a cheater word?
Cheater words are the lazy, overly broad descriptors we lean on when we don't want to do the mental heavy lifting of finding the precise term.
Like what?
The biggest offenders are words like good, nice, bad, interesting, or the absolute worst of them all, stuff.
Oh, wow. Stuff is my absolute go-to. Like, I did some stuff this weekend. It was pretty good.
And that sentence is exactly why they're dangerous. Cheater words are fast food for the brain. They're quick, they're incredibly easy to access, and they get the immediate job done. But they provide absolutely zero nutritional value for your language skills. Wow. When you use stuff, you are actively signaling to your brain that it doesn't need to search the passive vocabulary file.
So to fix this, I need to create friction. If I ban the word good, suddenly I'm forced to evaluate my experience. Was the movie exhilarating? Was the food delectable?
Was the meeting productive?
Yes.
By eliminating the easy way out, you force your brain to fetch those higher tier words from the passive pile and drag them into the active one.
That's brilliant.
It is. And while we're talking about activating what you already know, we have to address phrasal verbs. At the C1 level, they are the bedrock of natural conversation.
English is notoriously brutal with phrasal verbs.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the trick isn't just memorizing lists of new ones. It's about mastering the wildly different multiple meanings of the ones you already use. Take the phrasal verb set up.
Okay, set up. I can set up a calendar invite for a meeting. That means to organize.
But you can also spark a romance. My friend set me up on a blind date.
Oh, true.
And in a completely different context, it means to frame someone for a crime. I didn't steal the money, I was set up.
Right. A B2 speaker knows the first definition.
But a C1 speaker instinctively understands all three, based entirely on the context of the sentence.
All right, let's tie this back to the bigger picture. We're banning cheater words, we're talking around concepts instead of using our phones, and we're mastering phrasal verbs.
Yes.
But I want to go back to that incredibly frustrating dinner party scenario from the beginning, the 5-second delayed reaction to the joke.
The mental lag.
Right. Even if I have great active vocabulary, how do I physically speed up my brain and my mouth to eliminate that delay?
You have to fundamentally destroy the mental translation loop. This is the neurological bottleneck.
The translation loop.
Yeah, when you hear a joke in English, your brain processes the audio, translates it into your native language, figures out the humor, forms a response in your native language, and then translates that response back into English before sending it to your vocal cords.
That is so much work.
It is. As long as you are running that multi-step translation process, you will always be 5 seconds too late. You must train your brain to short-circuit that loop and think directly in English.
That's a massive ask. You can't just flip a switch and command your inner monologue to switch languages.
No, you can't flip a switch, but you can build a habit through micro-actions. You start incredibly small.
Like how?
Begin by narrating your daily physical actions to yourself out loud. When you're alone in your kitchen, say, I'm making coffee, I'm reaching for the mug, the water is boiling.
That sounds a little absurd.
It does, but neurologically, you are tying the English vocabulary directly to the physical action in the real world, completely bypassing your native language.
I see. You're building a direct bridge between the object and the English word, so the native word doesn't have to act as the middleman anymore.
Precisely. You also have to change how you visualize vocabulary. When you hear the English word run, you must train yourself not to picture your native language's word for run.
So close your eyes and picture the physical image of a person sprinting.
Exactly. Furthermore, to really build speed, you have to stop learning language word by word and start acquiring it in chunks.
Chunks. What does a chunk look like mechanically?
Take the phrase, let me think about that. A B2 learner often constructs that sentence on the fly, retrieving let, then me, then think about, and that.
Piece by piece.
Right. A C1 speaker source, let me think about that, as a single prefabricated piece of data.
It's like buying pre-assembled furniture instead of building it from a pile of lumber every time you need to sit down. You just grab the whole chair and drop it into the conversation.
That's exactly how native speakers talk so fast. We are just chaining pre-assembled chunks together.
That makes total sense.
Now, once you're thinking in images and using chunks, you have to synchronize your physical mouth muscles to this new mental speed. This requires one of the most powerful tools in neurolinguistics, the shadowing technique.
Shadowing, I've seen a lot of debate about this. Break down the mechanics of it for us. What is it and why does it work?
Shadowing is the process of listening to native audio and immediately, almost simultaneously, repeating what they say out loud.
Instantly.
Yes. You do not wait for them to finish the sentence and pause.
Yeah.
You speak over them, following right behind them like a shadow. You match their exact rhythm, the rise and fall of their intonation, and their exact speed.
So you are basically mimicking them in real time. But why is that more effective than just repeating after a recording pauses?
Because it forces a neurological short circuit. When you're listening and speaking at the exact same time, your brain physically does not have the cognitive bandwidth left over to translate the input into your native language.
Oh, you overload the system in a good way.
Exactly. It forces your brain to process the meaning directly in English. On top of that, it trains your motor cortex. English requires different tongue placements and muscle tension than your native language.
And doing this helps with pronunciation.
Huge help. Shadowing for just 10 to 15 minutes a day builds the physical muscle memory required for native speed, which drastically reduces your accent.
Okay, the neuroscience behind that is fascinating. But here's a very practical question. If I'm supposed to be shadowing native speakers every single day, what exactly should I be listening to?
Good question.
Should I dig out those terrible monotone grammar takes where a guy slowly enunciates, "The cat is on the table"?
Please throw those tapes in the trash immediately.
Gone.
If you want to survive the real world, you have to practice with what real people consume. This brings us to the critical concept of authentic materials. The key to reaching C1 is entirely abandoning materials that have been artificially graded, simplified, or slowed down for language learners.
So no more ESL podcasts, no more English for beginners reading materials?
None of it. You must step into the wild, unedited English ecosystem.
What does that look like?
This means using a real local restaurant menu from a spot in London to practice food vocabulary. It means watching unedited YouTube vlogs, listening to fast-paced local news broadcasts, or tuning into overlapping comedy podcasts.
Right.
One incredible method is watching real crime TV shows and trying to debate the motives and suspects out loud as the show plays.
Debating a murder suspect's alibi using C1 English, I love that. But why is the real world so much more effective than a structured textbook? Textbooks are designed by experts, aren't they?
Textbooks are designed to strip away the chaos. They remove the colloquialisms, the dark humor, the cultural references, the mumbling, and the people talking over each other.
They make it safe.
Yes, but that chaos is exactly what the real world is. If you only train in a sterile, perfect environment, you will freeze the moment you encounter the messy reality of a dinner party joke.
But wait, if I'm a B2 learner and I turn on a fast-paced, unedited comedy podcast where 3 comedians are talking over each other in slang, I'm going to be completely crushed. I'll understand maybe 20% of it. How do I not just get overwhelmed and quit?
That is the danger, which is why you must follow the golden rule of authentic materials. If an authentic text or video feels too difficult, do not simplify the text. Simplify the task.
Simplify the task, not the text. Let's unpack the mechanics of that. Give me a step-by-step example.
Let's say watching a 45-minute episode of a fast-paced TV show is overwhelming. You do not switch to a children's cartoon. You take that exact same adult TV show and you isolate a single 30-second clip.
Just 30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds. You watch that same 30 seconds 5 times, changing your task each time. Watch it the first time just to grasp the overall mood.
Oh.
The second time, listen only to pick out the verbs. The third time, try to identify any phrasal verbs. The fourth and fifth times, you shadow the dialogue out loud. You maintain exposure to the complex, chaotic, authentic language, but you make the cognitive workload highly manageable.
I see. And the psychological victory of that is massive. Actually understanding a real, unedited 30-second clip from a show native speakers are watching right now that proves you can survive in the wild.
Exactly. Finishing chapter 4 in a workbook just doesn't deliver that same hit of dopamine.
And that dopamine, that psychological win, is exactly what fuels the motivation to push through those final 300 hours.
Absolutely.
So, to summarize our roadmap, we're recognizing the heavy cognitive load of B2. We are fine-tuning the grammar of nuance with things like passive infinitives. We're locking the dictionary to force circumlocution.
We are banning cheater words like stuff to activate our passive vocabulary.
We are short-circuiting our mental translation loop through daily shadowing, and we are throwing out the textbooks to conquer 30-second chunks of authentic, chaotic materials.
That is the complete blueprint. And as you apply this, I want you to reconsider what language actually is. For years, you've probably treated English like a math problem to be solved.
You memorize the vocabulary formula, apply the grammar rule, get the right answer.
Exactly. But language isn't math. It's a physical and psychological environment. It's an operating system. If you stop treating English as a subject you study at a desk and start treating it as the natural operating system for your daily life, that invisible wall will crumble faster than you think.
Treat it like an operating system. You just have to install the update and let it run constantly in the background. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to chew on.
What's that?
We are living in an era where AI translation is getting terrifyingly fast and virtually flawless. Within a few years, your phone will perfectly translate B2 level functional English in real time.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you just need to book a hotel, write a corporate memo, or order a coffee, AI will do it flawlessly. So what does that mean for us? It means B2 English might soon become completely obsolete.
That's a sobering thought.
It really is. The only thing AI can't replicate is C1. It can't replicate the human nuance, the subtle irony, the cultural connection, and the spontaneous laughter at a dinner party. C1 fluency might be the only language skill left that actually matters because it's the only one based on genuine human connection.
Beautifully said.
And on that note, that wraps up our exploration today on Dale English Class. We are so incredibly glad you joined us for this breakdown, but before you go, we want to hear from you. Head down to the comments below and tell us 2 specific things.
Yeah, let us know.
What is your current English level, and what is your ultimate goal level? Are you stuck at that B2 functional stage, or are you chasing that C1 effortless precision? Let us know. And of course, if this roadmap provided you with some aha moments today, please like the video, leave that comment, share this with your fellow language learners who are hitting that same wall, and subscribe to the channel for more practical, real-world language mastery. Until next time, keep ditching those cheater words, and we'll see you soon.